Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Katja, and I've got two wolves inside of me. One has autism, one has ADHD. Sometimes they're friends, and sometimes they fight. Come sit with me on the couch and explore the way these things interact. So, today the topic is ADHD. Just a little introduction, how it shows up in me. How did I know I had ADHD? So, first, we're going to talk about what it used to be like. Um, I will start there, talk about what happened and what it's like now. So, back in the past, what it used to be like is I was a kid living in a house with two parents who had ADHD. Um, they were diagnosed back when people didn't know much about ADHD, and they had they were very successful in their careers, in their lives as adults. And so everything I learned was through not through the lens of ADHD, like explicitly. It wasn't said that I was learning things through the lens of ADHD. Everything I learned just was through ADHD um, adaptations or ways of coping with, like, ways of working with ADHD. So this means like the way that I learned to like get things done for school was basically by waiting until there was enough adrenaline in my system from waiting to the last minute to like push and make it happen all at once. So that's what I would do. Um, and the way I learned how to get to school or to work, or I mean to any event, was to also wait until the last minute so you don't have to waste any time waiting while you're there. Um, the other thing was like food, which is something that people with ADHD can kind of struggle to um, be consistent with, like making sure a person is fed. That was something that was definitely clear in my household. You kind of like scrounge for yourself every once in a while, or we would have food. We didn't lack for food. Like, we never wanted for food, but we did have to like kind of figure out our own meals often, and we'd be eating different things. Like, I remember my dad just making like bread, cheese, put it in the microwave, eat it. And then like I would make like peanut butter and jelly tortilla sandwiches because we didn't have any bread, for example. So stuff like that. Um, so that's what ADHD looked like in my family. I didn't really think of myself as having ADHD, but I did have the qualities that I just mentioned that my parents had. Um, so school is something that people with ADHD can struggle with. And for me, school is something that I did pretty well at throughout middle school, through elementary school. But once I reached middle school, I started having a little more trouble. What I was good at was like, I love to receive praise. I think that people with ADHD like really benefit from reward systems. So if I like learned all the rules, like learned the rules of the road, the way that authority figures wanted me to behave, if I behaved in those ways and they told me good job, or like just gave me praise, that would just be enough dopamine hit for me to just like continue seeking that out. Once I went to middle school, though, it's a lot harder to do that when you have like seven different teachers or however many we had at that time. And I wasn't able to do that in the same way. I would still try, but the rules were different from each classroom, and that would make things challenging. Um, I also just had more homework to keep track of, and more time management to have to do because, you got work for this class and this class. The reading takes this long, the math takes this long, and I would take a long time to finish my homework. I would spend a lot of time doing it. And my focus didn't come up so much on like not doing my homework. It was just like while I was doing it, just really having a hard time, having trouble like remembering things like that I was taught, really struggling with cumulative exams, where you have to like you get quizzed on everything from the whole semester, trimester, whatever it was called back then. And I still really struggle with that. that type of thing, like remembering a lot of material from the whole year. I can do better when I've just learned it and can just prove it on a test. Um, so, bumping up to high school, the ways that I coped with having difficulty listening, staying awake in class, um, and with directions is I would ask, well, with sleep, I mean, I did struggle with staying awake in class. Like, I even asked to be moved to the front of the class, moved to the front of the class, and still would fall asleep every day right after lunch. It was like clockwork. And I've been a class sleeper all the way throughout high school. And even when I was like kindergarten, first grade, I can't remember the time in elementary school. But yeah. So anyway, big sleeper. It just takes a lot of energy for me to focus, and so when I am focusing, I burn it up. I burn up my energy, and I get really tired. So, high school, the ways I would cope with having trouble with memory was by asking friends. I was so lucky to have like texting and like Facebook and stuff at that time. So, I was able to like reach out to people and ask, like, what is it that they wanted for this assignment? When is that thing due, etc. And that would really help. I made it to college. I really didn't know which direction I wanted to go in, and so I applied to like 15 different colleges, which is so many. And actually, like, yeah, so crazy that I did that. But when I finally chose a place, like I ended up then dealing with new mental health problems, which I've learned can happen from having undiagnosed ADHD, like depression and anxiety. So, my understanding is that, like, people with ADHD have this feeling of like not being enough based on them be when they were being themselves being getting into trouble. So, like, if I were to fidget as much as I um, wanted to in class, or to ask all the questions that I wanted to ask in class, or if I wanted to whatever, do just behave as my normal self, then I would be thought of as inappropriate, rude, etc., not paying attention, stuff like that. And so I had this like feeling of like I'm not good how I am, and that kind of like innate feeling of not being a good enough or worthy at all can be really easily lead to depression. So I had depression due to outside circumstances and that internal landscape of just not feeling like I was good enough already. So depression came into my life, and anxiety had already been a big part of my life, but it came to a really big, um, not a head yet, but it came to a really, like, it just became a really big part of my life when I was in college. Um, Anxiety and ADHD interacting looks like this to me. So, everyday tasks of like remembering things, making sure I'm on time, blah, 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 all that stuff just takes more work. And so I constantly like had this like checking thing where I'm just like, did I do that thing? Did I do this thing? Did I do that thing? Always like trying to remember if I'm forgetting something, basically. And that hypervigilance is like my experience of anxiety, or it's one of the ways that anxiety can manifest in me. So that got really intense in college. Later on, my the way that I ended up, actually no, in college, the way that I ended up coping with these things was, um, well, luckily, I went to the school counselor for the first time and was able to kind of talk about what was going on for me when I was in crisis. And I started opening up about it with some people, which was the start of a really wonderful journey into the therapy world. And then besides that, I also started really leaning on alcoholism, um, and I started leaning on substances like alcohol and other extracurricular activities such as this, and really seeking validation from people and social interactions. So that became kind of a dopamine seeking thing. I did it through Instagram, I did it through relationships, I did it through friendships, I did it through drinking, partying, being rebellious, making crazy choices, tackling people, um, breaking things, setting things on fire, all this crazy stuff that like was really just like a desire to like move the agitated feeling inside of me outward. So that got pretty crazy. And I'll talk about my experience with addiction in a different video. Um, but what that led to was eventually the need to get sober. And so luckily I was able to get sober in 2021. And since then, I've been learning a lot more about like all the ways that I've learned to live with ADHD, all of the methods that I have to like make sure I remember things, make sure that things happen, make sure that I continue moving forward. And I've had to learn a lot more new things to like, pause before making an impulsive decision, like to stick things through, to try committing to things. And it has been such an interesting, long journey. I mean, I'm only coming up on 30 years old. So it's been a long journey. And at the same time, I'm very lucky to be this young while learning all this stuff about myself. But it's been really great to like come to a little more acceptance about these ways that I operate and learning that I can be lovable while having these traits. So yeah, that's my experience with ADHD in a nutshell. Of course, I could go on and on. If you related to any of this, please leave a comment. How did you deal with ADHD? Were there ways that you were able to be successful with ADHD? Were there ways that you really struggled? I'd love to hear about it. Please leave me a comment. And if you related to this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're looking for more information and content, hit the subscribe button and I'll be putting out more videos. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a good day.